Good morning, class. So, today we are going to talk about poverty. Poverty. I'm sure these pictures on this introduction say so much about this thing. So, anyway, this whole week we've been discussing about factors that affect Namibia economically. And yesterday we spoke about unemployment, and we've said unemployment occurs when people are actively searching for jobs and they don't find jobs at all. And it's mentioned the main four types of unemployment, which are structural unemployment, frictional unemployment, cyclical unemployment, and seasonal unemployment. Well, today we are going to talk about poverty. So, what is poverty? Well, poverty is a condition where people's basic needs for food, clothing, and shelter are not being met, right? So, when people's basic needs are not being met, they are said to be living in a condition of poverty, right? Just look at this picture here. It says a lot. You can see how many people are living under this roof. That is, uh, this is zinc, and it's rusted, and it's just not proper at all. So these people's shelter is not satisfying at all. Look at this in this picture. Look at their clothing. Look at where they are cooking. It says so much about poverty, right? So when we're talking about poverty, it's more than just hunger in the stomach, but it's also about clothing and shelter, which are our basic needs. Next slide, we are going to talk about the types of poverty, right? So we have two types of poverty, which is absolute poverty and relative poverty. So absolute poverty is a synonymous with destitution and occurs when people cannot obtain adequate resources measured in terms of calories or nutrition to support a minimum level of physical health. So absolute poverty is hunger itself, because when people don't even have enough nutrition, their level of physical health is very poor. They will start getting sick, they will start getting thin, and so on and so on. And then the next type of poverty is relative poverty, which occurs when people do not enjoy a certain minimum level of living standards as determined by a government, right? In the previous pictures that I've shown you, you can see those people are living in shacks, they are cooking outside. Do you really think those people are living on their best living standards? No, they are living in certain minimum level of living standards, which are very dissatisfying and very discouraging indeed, right? So those are our types of poverty. Next, how is poverty measured? Well, poverty can, however, be measured and assessed very differently. For example, by establishing a basket of essential food and non-food items needed for household survival. So how is this basket measured? This basket is measured in monetary value, right? Where the the basket is calculated and then used as the standard of measuring poverty, right? So uh, um, this basket is based on the household expenditure and incomes. So how do they spend their income, and how do they spend their income on their expenditures? So an interesting fact is that households that spend more than 60% of their expenditure on food are deemed to be poor, and those that spend 80% of their income on food are deemed to be severely poor. Imagine the domestic workers that earn the minimum wage, which is 1.5, right? Domestic workers earn 1.5 per month. That is very clear. So 1.5 is what they get. And how much is food? I mean, if you want to have proper food, and to, you need to at least have 800, and that is more than 60% or 80% of your salary. So you are deemed to either be poor or severely poor, right? Now, just because it is measured in basket, uh, in just because poverty is measured in terms of basket, it doesn't only mean that everybody can measure their levels of poverty. No, the Namibia Statistics Agency is the agency that is well organized and recognized by the Namibian government, and that is the one that comes about to do more research or surveys on the basic households in Namibia. Right? The next slide is going to elaborate more on how this is mostly done. You see, they go about house to house and ask about their income and expenditure. That's how they complete their surveys, and then they come about with their statistics. And most of the time, when the Namibia Statistics Agency is doing their surveys, they are mostly funded by big organizations like the USAID, an example of it. And after that, they then share the results. It depends now when they decide to host, they can either host it in any region of the country. And I can see here, you can see it's 2015 to 2016 results were shared in Okavango region. It can be shared in Commerce, etc., etc. Next slide. These are just fun facts I want you guys to know. So, did you know, despite relatively good economic growth and recent stable employment growth, the Namibian population continued to be susceptible to poverty? Right. I know most of Namibia is not really in extreme poverty, but regardless of what we are going through, we are seen as um, we are doing relatively good. We're not doing so well, but we are getting there, right? In Namibia, poverty and inequality levels are among the highest in Africa, and that is true because if you look at the shelter or the house that people live in Namibia are really, really discouraging and very dissatisfying, and they are not living up to everybody's standards, right? Next slide. Um, Poverty is also highest among those with less access to services. Yeah? In terms of access to safe drinking water, poverty is highest among those whose main source of drinking water is a river, canal, lake, oceana, dam, or well, or public pipe. I mean, in this picture, you can see these people are fetching water. I don't know if it's a river or well, but you can see the water is very dirty, right? So these people have uh, uh, poor services, which is said to be a condition of poverty, right? Well, regards to sanitation, poverty is highest among those that do not have access to the toilet facility or who are using the bucket system, like in the rural areas. They use the bucket system. I'm sure for you guys that are coming from the north, I'm sure you're familiar with it. And in terms of ownership to access to assets, poverty is highest among those with neither own nor have access to telephones, radio, livestock, or land either for crops or grazing. I mean, imagine if you live in the north and you don't have land. How are you going to survive if you can't even grow any crops, or you won't have livestock? How are you going to survive? Because I'm sure most of the people in the north, they mostly depend on land and their livestock, right? Also, poverty is highest among those who live more than 1 kilometer away from their main sources of drinking water, health facilities, schools, public transport, and local markets. Just look at this picture here. You can just imagine how many kilometers these people travel to just fetch water. I mean, they're even using wheelbarrows and they're using containers just to get themselves water. I mean, look at this picture here. This woman in this picture is washing in how many basins outside. It's not, and you can see in the area she's living, it's not so well, right? So this concludes the term poverty. So class, tomorrow I'm expecting everyone to at least bring or prepare 2 minutes presentation, because poverty is not a small topic, it's a broader topic. So I want at least everybody of you guys to prepare a little presentation. So before I dismiss the class, I want to recap. What is poverty? Poverty is a condition in which people live when they cannot afford their basic needs, which are food, clothing, and shelter. And we have two types of poverty which are named relative poverty and absolute poverty. And how is it measured? It is measured in terms of basket, and these are done by the Namibia Statistics Agency. And that's it. That was our class for today. So, class dismissed, and don't forget the presentation tomorrow. Good day.